Ladies and gentlemen, for our lunchtime keynote, we welcome Teck Yin Lim, CEO of Sport Singapore. Sport Singapore is a statutory body of the Singapore government that oversees all sports and fitness activities in Singapore. They are one of the most progressive agencies in the world when it comes to how government is interacting with sports and fitness. They oversee a huge portfolio of facilities, of gyms, activities, events, and now also online offerings. They are true leaders, in our humble opinion, of how government must react to COVID and also how they can play a huge role in developing national capability for any given country. For now, pleasure to introduce Teck Yin Lim. Teck Yin, a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you very much for joining us. 2020, of course, has been a roller coaster year. Let's look at Sport Singapore. Let's look at Singapore as a whole. How has this year impacted how you see national development playing out for sports in the future?
Well, thanks for having me, Ross, and delighted to have an opportunity to share some thoughts with the audience. In 2019, we conducted a review of our master plan for sport, Vision 2030. And it threw up a slew of recommendations that we were obviously very excited to work on. And COVID-19 has sort of put a little bit of a, not just a delay, if you like, on our plans, but also a different spin on how we need to be looking at things. It has caused us to take a pause to review how we might not just think about transforming capabilities in the sport ecosystem, but how to enable the sporting ecosystem to be a lot more resilient to shocks and disruptions. One of the key review recommendations was the need for us to work very closely with the industry. And insofar as COVID-19 has forced us to speed up that engagement with industry and also to have conversations like the ones we are having now through all the different webinars on the type of support, the type of collaboration that needs to take place between industry and government. I think that has all been very positive. Specifically for sport infrastructure, we are looking very hard at what we need to do to be able to create sporting spaces that are able to cater to such disruptions. But we're also thinking about how we would collaborate with industry in the allocation of such resources, because as you know, Singapore is pretty land scarce. So I think everybody has sort of faced up to the bad news of COVID-19, but we are very quickly moving into thinking about what opportunities exist. And I think that's the right mindset that we have to take.
Sport Singapore, and especially yourself, Teck Yin, have really been instrumental in trying to deliver joint initiatives with industry. How do you see these initiatives and these relationships playing out in the long term?
Well, I think the pandemic has given us an opportunity to engage more frequently and to go into deeper conversations about building greater resiliency in the industry. But more importantly, it has given us an opportunity to think about, as I mentioned earlier on, what opportunities exist in the future. Specifically with respect to health and fitness, we have been for some time talking about how we would begin to engage our clients 365 days a year. As everybody needed to pivot to go online, the idea of how we continue to engage physically and online and to be able to create synergy between those two types of engagement, I think those are the opportunities that lay ahead of us for the fitness industry. And the question, of course, is how do we create enough value that people will want to be able to subscribe to those services and not just expect that everything is going to be freemium online. But we'll be able to move to a freemium premium mix. But I think that is certainly in the space that we would like to be able to work on, because health and wellness does depend on a good level of daily activity and healthy habits. For sport participation in the mass participation space, I think our first effort was to ensure that we would not lose capability in terms of people having to close down or to move on to other jobs, but to stay interested in staying in the space. And what we've done is to be to create opportunities to provide some level of grants for people to continue to think creatively about what sort of blended or virtual activities we would have.
There's some fantastic innovations, Teck Yin. Let's come to those towards the next couple of questions. I know we just touched on it earlier on, this need for greater industry, government, communication and collaboration. We've found that a lot of governments and industries worldwide have failed to really connect, to really bring forward change. It's obviously something that you're doing with Sports Singapore, but with your government hat on, how does industry better engage government? How can we better realise how to deliver some return and value back to our government partners?
Well, as an agency of government, I would have to say that we have been very thankful and appreciative that the overall tone of engagement and collaboration between industry and government has been very positive. And that trust and support has enabled us as a government agency, working with our other government agencies, to be able to progress the opening of the economy and the opening of the community to more activities in a gradual and paced way. I think we are very clear, and I think the people of Singapore are very clear, that we don't want to move into a situation where we are starting and stopping and starting and stopping, having to move between opening up and then locking down again. I think we're all working very closely together to ensure that as we open, we remain open, and we would only continue to run activities and to progress those activities at a pace that we know is safe and that will enable us to keep the economies going and jobs are supported and retained. So sport and fitness, we follow and take dressing from the national profile. We know that we've been clamoring to be able to increase group sizes, to increase capacities. I'm receiving appeals, everything from residents in condominiums to sports and fitness businesses, to community groups. And I think it's all warranted that people should continue to engage, make appeals, communicate, because it's in that engagement that we all understand better where we are as a country, where we are as a community, and what more we can do. I think that, business is well suited to be innovative and adaptive to the environment. And that's the only way that business knows it's going to survive in the long term. What we've seen in terms of how, and not just in Singapore, but internationally, how people are trying to adapt and create opportunities to play in different ways, create ways in which to manage spaces to maintain safety. I think that's what we want to continue to see and encourage. Most importantly, we need to believe that we're all on the same side, right? We're all on the same side in doing this, and that everybody is being reasonable if we have common aspiration that we're going to keep Singapore open. We all hope that we will return to the norms that we used to see, but given the situation in the world today, we cannot discount the risks that what may affect Singapore may come from outside of Singapore. And so we have to be mindful that there are certain parts of how we do things here in Singapore that have to be united across all sectors of industry. Not just sport and fitness, but sport, fitness, retail, entertainment, food and beverage, tourism. We've all got to be aligned in that national profile. So continue the engagement, continue to think of innovative ways in which we can do this. And I am encouraged by what I've seen, applications for facility owners to say, well, if we were to sort of organize ourselves in a certain way, would we be able to increase capacity? And the answer must be yes, if we are quite clear that those measures are tight and that people are acting responsibly. So industry also has a role to help educate your customers, educate your clients on what we're all trying to achieve together.
That's a great segue, Teck Yin, to talk about some of the initiatives that you're doing to make sure Singaporeans at a national level are more healthy, are more engaged in their well-being. I know, of course, you've been developing your online and virtual offerings. Can you share some insight into what's being created and how you see that evolving in the next couple of years?
Well, we've pivoted. We had to pivot very quickly to enhancing what was going to be available online. And I think many businesses were able to do that quite quickly. We are fortunate in Singapore that mobile penetration and internet penetration rates are extremely high for this city and this country. And so we were in a good place to be able to take things online. We learned very, very quickly as well that reach was never going to be the problem. And I think most people who have been engaged in this space for the last few months know that they've been able to reach people. The statistics, the data shows that we've been able to reach people, but that's quite different from saying that we're able to keep them engaged, right? So whether it's the habits of social media or the way that people have been consuming online content, we have to be able to improve when we think about 360 engagement to see what people really need, what they're interested in, and then how to provide them with the content and the sense of community as we continue online engagement blended together with physical engagement. In that regard, we are particularly interested that we should be exchanging insights and data across all our industry partners, right? Knowing our customers, knowing what people want is key to being able to deliver those services. And so from our perspective, even as we are learning from our efforts of providing different channels to reach different people, whether we're reaching parents who are looking to see what they can do for their children at home, whether we are reaching out to seniors, working with agencies who are trying to enable more seniors to be digitally literate, what kind of content they need, whether it's actually looking at kids and adults who play sport, what kind of content would you provide to substitute for the lack of opportunity necessarily to be frequently on the field? The question is, how do we design that? How do we remain engaged? And that really comes from sharing data, sharing insights. So what we hope to be able to do in the months ahead is to be able to open up more exchanges of lessons learned, insights, and data, all right? And then to be able to go out quickly on a cycle of innovation and learning so that we quickly turn the wheels to be able to get more and more people more engaged, even as we have more, I would say, kind of achieve the reach numbers that we would have been very happy with. So we, for example, through our different platforms, the reach has been about 30 million. Right? It's hit 30 million over the last few months, but the engagement numbers leave a lot more to be desired.
I think it's so encouraging, Teck Yin, to see these initiatives, and we're under no doubt that Singapore will engage, and of course we will remain a healthier and happier nation. Let's look perhaps at how in 2021 some of these activities might have to be managed differently. We talked about how sporting events and facilities might have to undergo some management changes. How do you see the way that events and facilities are managed in 2021 changing?
Well, Ross, I think when we think of the sort of events that we've staged in Singapore, a lot of which involved a travel-in a team of athletes as well as audience. Those sort of events are always going to be at the mercy now of whether teams and athletes and spectators are willing to travel. And so we will continue to work with the rights holders for those events and think about what type of safe management measures can be put in place. Specific to the issue of travel, we will have to capitalize on what is traveling into the region. Right? If we are trying to bring something quite unique that's going to come from afar, it's going to be a lot more difficult than if we are working as a collective of countries in Asia and Southeast Asia to be able to capitalize on the fact that people are coming in and are operating within bubbles in each respective country. And I've had some conversations with some rights holders, people who are staging events in China, and saying, okay, we've taken a lot of effort to bring these athletes and teams to China. Is there an opportunity from there to create that bubble to bring them into Singapore? And when they're in Singapore, how might we think about safe management measures and what is the value proposition for coming here in the very first instance? We have to attain a level of clarity on these matters. I think from a medium-term planning perspective for Sport Singapore, we are asking ourselves how we would enhance our domestic events calendar and the quality of what's being offered to fans, to spectators. I spoke briefly in another forum that suggested that if we find that we need to be able to really anchor on a domestic event, how would we create more semi-pro leagues and events where we do think about a resident population of imported talent to supplement local talent to make the competition more interesting. So we will have a look at that. But next year is going to be an interesting year as well because you have the Olympic Games and we have the SEA Games at the end of the year in Vietnam. And this does mean that countries need to open up the conversation on how we intend to prosecute these international major events. Singapore is going to be the chair of the ASEAN Sport Ministers meeting next year. And I think we are positioned to open up some conversations about how Southeast Asia will collaborate towards bringing sport back together.
You touched on this need for us to continue to collaborate with our ASEAN partners here. What kind of trends do you think in the next couple of years will start to impact not just Singapore, but also the ASEAN region in terms of sports and fitness?
Well, I think the sports and fitness scene in Southeast Asia as a whole has been growing progressively in line with the overall growth of industry in Asia, not least fueled by what's going on in China and to a certain extent in India as well. We've seen a greater level of interest in commercializing what was perhaps at one stage really the domain of national federations, seeking to bring their domestic calendar to a more professional commercial model. And we think that that trend will indeed continue. So we can see, for example, in the Malaysia Super League, a much bigger effort to commercialize that offering. And of course, in the Philippines, you've had basketball being big for many, many years now, and they will be looking to protect those interests and, in fact, to grow those opportunities. The key for ASEAN is really how we will start to work more closely together to be able to work on an expanded 600 million potential market. We have seen, when the Suzuki Cup was run for Southeast Asian football, that the following for that as a commercial property was always going to be strong. This year, we've had to call it off. But will we be able to build a more resilient model around the Suzuki Cup with all the types of measures to be in place? Because we know there's going to be an audience that was willing to watch this on broadcast platforms. Esport has had its, is having its day in the sun, obviously. I think the interest in esport was growing, and the situation that presents itself today just tells us that, it is one of those that fully capitalizes on the lack of opportunity to go outside and play. So I see the growth in esport remaining, unabated. What I'm particularly interested in is to what extent we will see the growth of blended events, virtual events. Super League Triathlon ran an amazing event in Rotterdam. I think there are interests to see whether you could run a blended event across countries. If you can find a way using technology to even out the competition, recognizing different conditions in different countries. That will be quite an interesting development, and I think would have a large following of fans who are very nationalistic, who want to see their athletes doing well. We know that whenever there is anything that's pan-ASEAN in nature in the competitions, the number of viewers will be huge. We ran, the ASEAN University Games were held in Singapore a couple of years ago. And what I found quite interesting about that was we did a simple single cam live stream of some of the events. Low-key volleyball event between two countries, live audience, watching a single cam event, 45,000. I think not high production value, but huge interest. And I think that's something which, as we move forward in the years ahead, we have to capitalize on.
Looking at Singapore, Teck Yin, and obviously living here, our business is based here, we are incredibly bullish for the future of Singapore. What most excites you looking ahead to the future, both in terms of Sport Singapore, but of course the country as a whole?
I think that the COVID-19 pandemic has raised a certain level of consciousness in our population about the need to stay healthy and to be more mindful about our overall wellness. We have been moving very quickly from having to have people deal with the challenges in crisis and trying to cope through circuit breaker up to today. That still exists, but I think aspirationally, we will see a shift of people saying, moving from here, I want to be healthier. I want to be fitter. I want to feel well. And I think sport and fitness are primed to come into this space to say, we've got something here for you. Singapore has a lot of outdoor spaces. We are thankful for having a lot of green spaces for a city this size, for a country this size, that we can capitalize on. And what excites me the most is sport and fitness anytime, anywhere. And I think we can work very closely with industry to be able to present this. I think it is an important formula for Singapore going forward into the future to be a 24/7 global city that does not see health and wellness necessarily being compromised. And in fact, for health and wellness to be a prime mover of performance. That's an exciting prospect. So whether you connect the dots with what we're trying to do with sustainability and regeneration to this effort around health and wellness, I think there are a lot of exciting opportunities for all of us who are involved in sport and fitness.
Teck Yin, let me finish by maybe moving the conversation more towards yourself personally. You've led this marketplace now with Sport Singapore for the last few years. You've experienced incredible growth. You've ridden the roller coaster through COVID. Many lessons learned, many reflections I'm sure you could take as an industry leader. What are those reflections and what will you take forward into 2021 on a personal level?
Well, I think this crisis only reinforces the need to continue to build relationships, to connect, to pay attention to people. Everything that we do in our industry revolves around the well-being and energy of the people. Whether you're talking about the athletes, whether you're talking about the fans, whether you're talking about the participants, you're talking about families, it's all about meaning, purpose, feeling well, being happy. As leaders in organizations, we recognize that our people have missed very much the sense of connecting with one another. People feel isolated. People feel that the sort of relationship has become a lot more transaction in order to be able to get through an online meeting, to be able to go through the tons of emails that come through as an alternative from having a face-to-face conversation. For me, what that has meant is that we need to redouble our efforts to actually take the effort to connect. And I've been enjoying a sort of a revival of that, trying to put aside time to get away from that email and go in and meet up with people, to have a meal together, to spend an hour, 2 hours talking, rather than just to say, let's have a meeting, let's just deal with this agenda. We do need to be productive, and we need to be better organized. And as a leader myself, I'm finding that I need to get better organized, to get through everything I need to get through. But the opportunity and the priority that I'm trying to place now on connecting with people is obviously coming back to me in terms of helping me to feel better, helping me to feel more energetic, and to make the work more meaningful and purposeful. And I think that's what we are all trying to do. And I'm encouraged by my colleagues. I'm thankful for what they do day in, day out. I recognize that during COVID-19, they leaned forward. We ran dormitories for foreign workers. We sent staff to man up call centers at the Ministry of Manpower and the Ministry of Social and Family Development. We have safe distancing ambassadors out there unfortunately, sometimes having to enforce safe management measures. But I think everybody recognizes that we're in this together. And the desire to be able to come together, even in a webinar like this, is a lot more fun and a lot more meaningful than just sitting in front of a computer typing away at an email.
Teck Yin, I want to thank you and all of Sport Singapore for your service and for your leadership. It's been a pleasure to talk today, and we look forward to making sure we engage you to rebuild and regrow Singapore to even greater heights than ever before. Teck Yin, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Ross.
Hi everyone, I'm Jolene and I'm the Head of Partnerships at the FIT Summit. My favorite part of the event is for sure networking, because I get to meet different people from different countries, different profiles and companies. So the networking tab is something like a speed dating. You get matched with someone new every 4 minutes. And if you want to take the conversation further after the 4 minutes, be sure to press connect. When you do that, all the contact information will be sent to each other immediately. So you're able to talk to each other even past these 4 minutes. So have fun networking and meet as many people as you wish.
Hi everyone, my name is Dailene. I am the Head of Marketing and Communications at FIT Summit. My favorite part of the event, that's the expo floor. I get to meet as many exhibitors as I can. I get to find out about their products, what latest technologies they have to help me improve my business. I reach out to them, I click on the register interest button to make sure I stay in touch with them after the event. And some of them have great, amazing offers just happening for this event. So make sure you don't miss it.
I'm Blair Campbell, Head of Industry Development at the FIT Summit. What I love most about the Hop-In platform is how interactive it is. Here are some of my tips. Firstly, take part in our exciting polls. Answer all the questions, and at the end of the event, the data obtained will be available on our on-demand page. Secondly, use the messenger function to send messages to any attendee or request a private video call with them. You can even invite friends to join you, creating a group video call inside the event. Lastly, share your contact details and your live comments in the chat tab during any of the speakers' interviews or sessions to start dialogues with those who are watching and to make new contacts. Thanks.
Hi everybody, my name is Sarah and I'm the Head of Events at the FIT Summit. My favorite part of the event is definitely the sessions. The fact that I get to toggle between sessions and choose the favorite session that I would like to watch at any given time is my favorite part. Also, if I'm in a completely different time zone and I would like to watch a session that I can't watch at a usual time, I can always watch it on demand. The link for the on-demand sessions will be provided to you 48 hours after the event. Enjoy the event.
Thank you so much for joining us at the World Fitness and Wellness Summit organized by the Fit Summit.
We hope you learned something and also met amazing people.
And we're so looking forward to seeing you in person next year.
Bye-bye.
Bye.